This story, titled The Line Between Love and Respect. I'm Nathan, 47, an elementary school teacher from a small town in Ohio. I never thought I'd find myself sharing this story, let alone questioning the future of a relationship that I believed was built on love and mutual respect. But life has a way of challenging everything you think you know, doesn't it? It started 2 years ago when I met Emily. She was everything I had ever hoped for: kind, smart, compassionate, with a laugh that lit up every room she entered. We met at a local charity event, bonding over our shared love for music and community work. Emily was 39, an interior designer who had a knack for turning the ordinary into extraordinary. Being with her felt like stepping into a new chapter of my life, one filled with hope and endless possibilities. But as the months turned into years, the dream began to crack. And the cracks? They came in the form of her family. Emily came from an affluent family, the kind where appearances and social status mattered more than genuine connection. Her parents were wealthy business owners, and her two older brothers were both high-powered lawyers. From the beginning, I felt their judgment. The way their eyes lingered a little too long on my worn-out shoes or the humble car I drove. I brushed it off at first, telling myself that I was overthinking it, that maybe it was just a matter of time before they got to know me. But time didn't soften their coldness. In fact, it seemed to sharpen it. The first incident happened during a family dinner at their sprawling estate. I had spent hours preparing myself, wanting to make a good impression. But as soon as I walked through the door, her mother, Patricia, greeted me with a tight-lipped smile and a comment that I'll never forget. "Oh, Nathan, it's nice to see you again. Emily mentioned you teach children?" Her tone was polite, but the underlying message was clear. I wasn't what they envisioned for their daughter. The evening only got worse. Her father, Richard, barely spoke to me, focusing instead on sharing stories about the promising young men he had met at the country club, men he thought would make ideal partners for Emily. Her brothers chimed in with their own suggestions, laughing and joking as if I wasn't even in the room. Emily squeezed my hand under the table, her silent way of telling me to ignore it. I tried to brush it off, but the humiliation lingered. As the weeks turned into months, their disapproval became more blatant. There were invitations to events where I wasn't included, conversations about Emily's future that didn't involve me, and subtle, cutting remarks that made it clear I was an outsider. The worst part? They weren't just dismissive. They were actively trying to replace me. I found out one evening when Emily came home from a lunch with her mother. She was unusually quiet. Her usual spark dimmed. When I asked her what was wrong, she hesitated before finally admitting, "Mom tried to set me up with someone again." I blinked, unsure if I had heard her correctly. "Again?" I asked, my voice tinged with disbelief. She nodded, avoiding my gaze. "It's not a big deal, Nathan. I told her to stop. You know how she is, but it was a big deal." That wasn't the first time I had heard about these so-called introductions. Apparently, Patricia had a habit of arranging casual, coincidental meetings between Emily and men she deemed more suitable. And each time, Emily brushed it off, assuring me that it didn't mean anything. But to me, it meant everything. I felt disrespected, not just by her family, but by Emily too. How could she stand by and let them treat me this way? How could she allow them to undermine our relationship over and over again? I confronted her about it one night after another tense phone call with her mother. "Emily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "this isn't just about your family anymore. This is about us. About respect. Do you even see how much this hurts me?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with sadness. "Nathan, I love you. You know that. But my family, they're not going to change. I've told them to stop, but they don't listen. What do you want me to do?" I wanted her to stand up for me, to fight for me, to make it clear to her family that I wasn't going anywhere. But instead, I was met with excuses, with half-hearted attempts to brush the problem under the rug. The final straw came on a Sunday afternoon. Emily and I had planned a quiet day together, just the two of us. But as we were settling in to watch a movie, her phone buzzed with a message from her mother. "Mom wants me to meet someone at the club later," she said, her voice casual, as if it were no big deal. I felt my stomach drop. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me confused. "It's not what you think, Nathan. She just wants me to meet someone for coffee. It doesn't mean anything." But it did. It meant that she wasn't willing to put me first. It meant that she was still letting her family dictate her life, even if it came at the expense of our relationship. I stood up, my chest tight with emotion. Emily, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being the guy who's not good enough for your family. I can't keep pretending that this doesn't hurt. She looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. What are you saying? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I'm saying that I need to think about what's best for me. I need to think about whether I can stay in a relationship where I feel disrespected, where I feel like I'll never be enough. Her silence spoke volumes. As I walked out the door that day, I felt a mixture of heartbreak and relief. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I deserved a love that didn't come with conditions, a love that didn't require me to prove my worth. The drive back to my apartment felt longer than usual. The familiar streets blurred as my mind raced, replaying every moment of my relationship with Emily. I couldn't ignore the knot in my stomach, the ache in my chest. I loved her. There was no doubt about that. But love wasn't supposed to feel like this, was it? The quiet of my apartment was both a comfort and a reminder of what I'd just left behind. I sat on the edge of my bed, my thoughts a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and confusion. Had I made the right decision? Was walking away the only way to reclaim my self-respect? The next few days were a haze. Emily tried reaching out, calling and texting, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. What could I say? That I needed time? That I wasn't sure if our love could survive the weight of her family's disapproval? A week passed before I finally answered her call. Her voice on the other end of the line was soft, hesitant. "Nathan," she began, "I miss you." My heart clenched. "I miss you too, Emily," I admitted. "But missing each other isn't enough. We need to talk." We agreed to meet at the park where we had shared our first date. The bench under the old oak tree was still there, a silent witness to the love and laughter we had once shared. But this time the air between us was heavy with unspoken words. Emily looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. "I know I've let you down," she said, her voice trembling. "I know my family has made things unbearable for you, and I hate that I didn't do more to stand up for us." Her honesty caught me off guard. For the first time, I saw the weight she had been carrying, the struggle of trying to please everyone while losing herself in the process. "But I need you to understand something, Nathan," she continued. "My family is complicated. They've always been controlling, always trying to dictate my life. I've spent my whole life trying to break free from their expectations. And with you, I thought I finally had. But I didn't realize how much their opinions were still affecting us." I listened, my emotions a mix of empathy and frustration. "Emily, I don't blame you for your family's actions, but I can't keep being the person who's constantly overlooked. I can't keep fighting for a place in your life when it feels like your family is always trying to push me out." She reached for my hand, her grip firm and sincere. "I don't want to lose you, Nathan. I know I've made mistakes, and I know I've let my family come between us. But I'm ready to fight for us, to set boundaries with them, to show them that you're the person I choose." Her words were heartfelt, but a part of me couldn't help but wonder if it was too little, too late. Could we really rebuild the trust and respect that had been eroded over time? The weeks that followed were a test of our commitment. Emily began to stand up to her family in ways I had never seen before. She declined their introductions, called out their disrespectful comments, and made it clear that I was her partner and that their interference was no longer acceptable. But the road wasn't easy. Her family's resistance only grew stronger, their disapproval more vocal. They accused her of betraying them, of choosing me over them. And while I admired Emily's strength, I couldn't ignore the toll it was taking on her. One evening, as we sat together in the quiet of her apartment, Emily turned to me, her eyes filled with both love and exhaustion. "Nathan, I want you to know that I'm doing this because I love you. But I need to ask you something. Do you still believe in us? Do you believe we can get through this?" Her question hit me hard. Did I believe in us? I looked at her, the woman who had fought so hard to prove her love for me, and I realized that the answer wasn't as simple as yes or no. "I believe in the love we have, Emily," I said slowly. "But I also believe that love shouldn't have to come with so many battles. I need to know that this isn't just about proving a point to your family. I need to know that this is about us building a life together, one that's free from their influence." She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It is about us, Nathan. It's always been about us. But I understand if this has been too much for you. If you need time or space, I'll respect that. I just need you to know that I'm willing to fight for us, for as long as it takes." Her vulnerability was both heartbreaking and hopeful. I knew that walking away now would mean losing someone who truly loved me, someone who was willing to fight for me in ways she hadn't before. But staying would mean continuing to face the challenges her family posed, challenges that might never fully disappear. In the end, I made my decision. The next morning, I met Emily at the park again, the same bench under the oak tree. I took her hand in mine, the weight of my choice settling over me. "Emily," I began, my voice steady, "I love you, and I believe in us. But I also believe that we need to create a life that's ours, free from the shadows of your family's expectations. If we're going to move forward, we need to do it together, as equals, with respect and trust at the core of everything we build." Her smile was soft, her eyes filled with relief. "I want that too, Nathan. More than anything." And so we began again, not as two people fighting against the world, but as partners determined to create a love that could withstand anything. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't perfect, but it was ours. If this story resonates with you, like, comment, and subscribe.